A world powered by the blockchain is being formed right in front of our eyes. Experts are calling it the Internet 3.0, the next digital revolution. It's leaving many investors and even institutions looking for a path to take an early position in this massive opportunity. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Dash, it's all speculation at this point. But what is certain is that the most profitable businesses for cryptocurrency and the blockchain is in the actual creation of these coins. This is why some of the top early adopters of Bitcoin, blockchain miners, fund managers, and even billionaires have come together to create a new vehicle to invest in the blockchain core itself. Get immediate access to this new company by going to crushthestreet.com/Bitcoin.
Hello everyone and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri and I'm joined today with a returning guest, Frank Holmes of US Global Investor and chairman of the go-to crypto stock in the blockchain space, HIVE Blockchain Technologies. Frank, thanks for coming on Crush the Street with me today.
It's wonderful to be with you in the new year.
Frank, you know, I just wanted to mention this. We saw each other at the Miami Bitcoin conference, the largest crypto event thus far. I'm sure we'll see bigger ones down the road here. But by way of, starting this call, what were your initial thoughts being at that massive event?
Well, it's amazing to see people selling their cars, and I'll take X Bitcoins or Y Ethereum coins to sell my Lamborghini. And just a host of different characters. But I left there, Kenneth. I went to Vancouver and spoke at another conference that had 7,000 people out, like similar numbers. But the firm Canaccord had a crypto day, and I was really impressed with Poly Capital that said that Ethereum has created 10,000 millionaires.
Wow.
And only Chambers from Cisco in the 90s was the only other person that created 10,000 millionaires with all of his employees and all the acquisitions. And he said to me last year at a Harvard event that he could not do it today with all the regulations. So it's amazing to see where there's no regulations and how you've been able to see all these young people. And that's the big thing, Kenneth, at this conference. How many young people, and now we get more people my age showing up at what the investment opportunity is, and it's really significant.
You know, there's lots of money, as you said, circling the crypto space right now. One thing that you have to admit, and I know you understand this, money attracts talent. And any clue from your side as to how big of a deal blockchain will be going forward, given the incentives that entrepreneurs have with something as big as this space here?
Well, they have to, it's huge. Last year, $3.5 billion went in the creation of 1,000 coins. It's remarkable. And Coinbase was expected to make a little over $500 million, and they had $1 billion of revenue. They had some days open 100,000 accounts, and most of it's non-leveraged. It's just cash buying small amounts of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So there's something else that's happening, and I think the ICO market is another path of crowdfunding for raising capital for ventures, because the capital markets have become so expensive with regulations and legal filings, etc., that this millennials now moved in that direction to raise capital.
You know, Frank, you mentioned this space having a lot of young people, and you are one of the few that have got into this space, being maybe a little older, but recognize the opportunity that is in blockchain. And I congratulate you for that. You're striking while the iron is hot. You're now the chairman of HIVE Blockchain Technologies. For so many people out there who don't want to deal with the actual tokens and Bitcoin because it's still the Wild West, it's so much easier to purchase a stock, and partnering with just such an amazing team. I mean, if you would, give us a little idea, or the audience, an update on HIVE and just why this has you so excited.
Well, HIVE blockchain is the infrastructure. It's an infrastructure play on the mining of cryptocurrencies, and particularly Ethereum. And what also amazed me, Kenneth, is that a lot of the new ICOs are based on the protocol of Ethereum. So more ICOs that come out and they're based on the protocol, it just means we have a very long business model in mining Ethereum coins. But we mine these coins and they're virgin coins, where the Genesis is the first coin that is created. So therefore, it doesn't have any money laundering risks or KY. It's basically, these are brand new coins. They have a value that's greater than the price by 10%. For anyone who wants to buy, we've had people come and want to purchase our coins. So it's a unique way, it's an industrial scale of what we are doing in mining these coins. We're banking them right now, and then we'll have a quant fund to be able to crystallize some of the gains from them. But what we're seeing is that you need to have cheap electricity, and you need to have strategic partners, and we're very blessed. HIVE is so blessed to have Genesis Mining, that sort of German engineering mindset. They're all young mathematicians, and they're the ones that do the quickest build-outs. So we are in Iceland. We're now expanding into Sweden. It's tremendously exciting. And we have the first go-to stock. And to give you an idea, this was a seed round of 30 million, and it went to become a unicorn within a month. So investors that came in early were able to get the first big lift. It's gone through this correction phase. I think early investors take profits, and that's just normal. But I think in this phase of we raised $200 million in 3 months, and each financing was accretive for investors. And by this time next year, our run rate should have operating income of $200 million. Now that's based on Ethereum and Bitcoin prices today and the cost of mining these various coins. But $200 million of operating income by investing $200 million is just unprecedented in other avenues of mining. So we're very excited by that, and we think that multiple, when you look at NVIDIA, where you have to buy their cards, they're called graphics processing cards. These cards are critical for mining Ethereum. That's a stock that trades at 60 times earnings. That's over $100 billion market cap. So I think that we're so inexpensive when we look at a multiple rate of revenue, multiple rate of cash flow, and free cash flow. So I think it's a very exciting position. We have no debt. We have 5 employees at this stage. So we're in a very sweet spot, and we're the first mover advantage to be able to provide the public with a vehicle that is safe and clean to buy these cryptocurrencies.
You know, as we do this interview, HIVE's trading at around $2.76. GMP Securities just gave HIVE Blockchain Technologies a price target of $5.35, and this would suggest a large discount to market. I mean, can you comment as to this price target and just your thoughts surrounding that?
I think it's a very conservative valuation. I think the stock is easily worth over $10 based on relative comps when you look at the technology space and what the market's paying for free cash flow. If the model does, with forward-looking statements, you always have to be cautious with them because there's many moving factors. But if you do deliver based on today's Ethereum and Bitcoin prices and cost of mining these coins, if we do $100 million in free cash flow, this is a stock that's easily worth $3 billion. And that makes the stock worth over $10 a share. So I think that their approach is very analytical. They went over to Iceland. They sent their analysts over to Sweden. They did detailed model analysis. So it's a very conservative approach. So the fact the stock can double from here on their model, I feel very, very comfortable with.
One of the things that HIVE has benefited from was mining Ethereum during a time when it was $350 roughly. And obviously, we've seen a huge run up from there. It spiked to close to $1,500, and now we're well over $1,000. And it's the hodling model, and they're benefiting greatly from that. And I guess HIVE has been able to stay relevant and to really focus on where the trends are going to be in this fast-moving environment. And my question is how does HIVE plan to stay ahead of the game in this rapidly changing scenery here?
Well, right now the whole story is that China is pushing out the Bitcoin, the exchanges. But what's replacing is the significance of Japan. And Japan is the 3rd largest GDP in the world. And so when you're being relevant is that the Chinese are now looking for places to mine their coins, and they need inexpensive energy. So they're looking for people to front them and going into Sweden and other places. And that's one reason why we stayed focused on the Nordic countries. And we're also, exploring Canada where there's trapped electricity. That's the key here. You have to have cheap electricity And most of all the places we've gone is basically either green energy or it's hydro energy, and it's trapped energy or it's inexpensive energy, so it's not really impacting the cost of citizens living in a major urban area or the small towns. It's very inexpensive energy.
Frank, one of the things that you taught us in our last interview was about Metcalfe's law and the value of a growing network, and not just in a linear fashion, but an exponentially growing network. And can you address that here as we go into 2018, as we're in 2018? What are your thoughts as to the growing space in the cryptocurrency world?
Well, Metcalfe's law is a very important law because it helped explain for banks lending money for cable operators, and it was mobile phones, and now it's explaining Bitcoin. And basically it says as more people adopt a social network, a system, then the value of that new unit goes up exponentially. And so Metcalfe's law is really prevailing when you think of Bitcoin's capped out at 21 million coins. It's estimated 5 million have been lost somehow, some way. So we still have another 5 million to produce because there's about 10 million coins in the public's hand. And it's a very systematic way that only a certain amount of coins, each day can be released. But the demand is much greater. And as more people sign up at Coinbase and other platforms, Coinbase was in Bloomberg a couple months ago, 100,000 accounts in a day, looking to buy from $250 to $2,000 of Bitcoin. It's just going to grow exponentially. And I think the other factors I mentioned earlier is that all these ICOs that are coming out based on the convertibility of the platform price they use as Ethereum price, then it means Ethereum has grown, and then Ethereum jumped 400% over the time period when we started mining our Ethereum prices, and that's all part of Metcalfe's law. And what's really comfortable to me is the big bubble everyone keeps calling is that bubbles are usually debt. They're usually an implosion of debt. 2008 was where people were buying homes with zero down. Brokerage firms are leveraged 33 to 1. The majority of people at Coinbase and buying these coins as cash. It's not leveraged. So any volatility doesn't shake people out. They don't get margin calls to be thrown out of the space. So you have a very different adoption. And I think that once we get through this January storm, that we could probably see after the Chinese New Year, higher prices.
You know, one of the things you brought up is just the debt that we're seeing in the system. And many people are worried at the fact that we're seeing rising interest rates, and the 10-year bond is yielding, 2.5%. And many people said, hey, this is not going to work out. If we see this happen for a sustained period of time, there's going to be some serious fundamental degradation to the global economy. And I mean, that hasn't even been factored into cryptocurrency yet. We're just talking about adoption and technology and just a shift. But I mean, there has really been no panic that has struck in the markets yet. Any thoughts on this?
Well, I think that the CPI number is understated. So I think that, in fact, even though rates have been rising, there's still negative real interest rates. And that's only helped Bitcoin and Ethereum. That the money printing and the gazillions of dollars printed globally, and how the factors they do to create the CPI. If we use the 1990 factors, we have 8% inflation. So that means the government's been printing all these interests. So we're actually, and we know when we go to buy food, we go to buy anything, the prices have gone up dramatically since 1990 or even past 10 years. So I think we're going to probably see the Fed come out and redo, and there's been comments on it, what that CPI number is. And if that happens, then I think you can see gold surge. And I think the cryptocurrencies would not be hurt. I think, if anything, they'll become a sort of psychological safe harbor, especially for millennials. And I think that's what's really important. Mainstream investment public has not bought into the cryptocurrency as of yet. But those who have newsletter writers and subscribe to your publications and other ones, when I meet people my age in the 60s that have invested in this space, is because of the newsletter writers, not because mainstream brokerage firms, etc. They can't recommend any Bitcoin or any of these currencies. So I think as we go further along this path, we're going to get a greater adoption, and that will drive prices even higher. But right now, it's really to tip our hat to the millennials. I was so blessed to have listened to my son and my godson Trevor Kaverko has Polymath. These guys have done a phenomenal job in this space, and it inspired me to, as an older person, to say, stay young mentally and be invigorated. And that's what Frank Juicer did with Fiore. The same thing, surrounding himself with young guns like you, Kenneth, that see things differently. And so I believe we're in a unique macro stage trend, and I remain bullish. But we're going to stay very volatile like the 90s were for the internet stocks.
You know, you brought up Polymath, and I mean, this was just a big eye-opener for me at the conference. When you see what is happening, we're talking about tokenized securities, tokenizing equity. This is as opposed to tokenizing or traditional stock, traditional shares. And I guess we're just at the tip of the iceberg on this. But Frank, in your opinion, do you see this really disrupting the traditional equity world going forward?
I do. I think that you're seeing something. Sprott's going to come out with Gold Corp and the Royal Mint of Canada. That Gold Corp's bullion will be stored and it'll be collateralized against a coin, securitized. So you're seeing that there's no crystal path, there's no right way, because the regulators are trying to digest it. But it's very exciting if we go to 24/7 trading. Let's say we carried a gold royalty on an asset and we raised $100 million, and investors have a perpetual gold royalty off any production from all this land packages, and then all of a sudden the royalty companies will be difficult to. There'll be competition for companies going to royalty companies to raise money. It'll create competition for doing an IPO the normal securities way, because they'll do an ICO and securitize that revenue stream. It's going to happen. I don't know when, but it's in motion. The other big part I discovered was liquid natural gas, which is so critical for the world's energy space, especially when we go to Asia. That none of the contracts or futures contracts are standardized, but guys are working on an ICO that would standardize all of that 24/7 natural gas that's coming from Qatar, going to Japan and China and all through Asia. So there's lots of wonderful ideas of the idea of blockchain technology with a cryptocurrency against a contract, a futures contract, of how they could standardize it. And the standardization would be this ICO. I think all this stuff is fabulous.
Well, we're in a whole new frontier, and what an exciting ride it's been. Frank Holmes of U.S. Global Investor and the chairman of HIVE Blockchain Technologies. Frank, thanks for coming on Crush the Street with me today.
Well, thank you very much, and please get GMP's report to your readers, because it's an excellent overview of HIVE Blockchain's unique position in this space.
We'll be sure to have it in the description area. Everyone check that report out. It's very thorough, a very good report. Thanks, Frank, for coming on the show.
And happy investing.